I worked at a deserted gas station in Arizona. The cursed rules I discovered will haunt you. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, a chill swept through me, like 1,000 icy fingers dancing on my skin. It was just another mundane night shift at the edge of nowhere. The gas station was run down, barely standing, abandoned once, but somehow still open. The flickering fluorescent lights buzzed like angry bees above me, a constant reminder of the darkness that surrounded us. I was used to the quiet. The lonely stretches of highway, the solitude echoing in the empty aisles. My routine was simple: ID check the pumps, organize the snacks, and wait for the occasional traveler. But that night felt different. The wind howled outside, a mournful sound that curled through the cracks in the old walls. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and dust, like a warning. I could feel something watching me from the shadows of the store, something sinister coiling in the corners, whispering my name in the stillness. Then came the noises. A soft rustle, like a breath behind me. I whipped around, heart pounding. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the low creak of the building settling. My hands trembled. Was it just my imagination? I forced myself to breathe, each inhale a battle against the dread pooling in my chest. I turned back to the register, but an odd sensation crawled up my spine. I felt a presence lurking. And then a cold gust burst through the door ID carelessly left ajar. The outline of a figure flickered in the periphery of my vision, too quick to focus on. My pulse quickened. The shelves rattled. Was it just the wind? Was there someone or something there? I needed to check. I stepped forward cautiously, each footfall heavy against the cracked tile. But as I approached the door, the fluorescent lights flickered erratically, casting jagged shadows that danced across the room. My breath caught. I could hear it clearer now, the whispers, muffled yet taunting, coming from the darkness beyond. And then, in a heartbeat, a loud bang echoed from the storeroom. My heart sank. A door slammed. Panic surged. I hesitated, fighting the urge to flee. I gripped the counter, knuckles white, as that cold air wrapped tighter around me. Then, just as I was about to turn and bolt, the figure emerged from the shadows. It was there, right in front of me, a swirling darkness, a face I couldn't see. It was everything I feared embodied. My scream got stuck in my throat like a lump of ice. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness pulsed like a living thing, swirling around the figure as it loomed closer, tendrils trailing behind it like smoke in its wake. I froze, rooted to the spot, every instinct screaming for me to run, but my legs felt like concrete. An unsettling calm settled over me, as if the figure was wrapping me in a cocoon of dread, its presence suffocating. Help me! It was a dry rasp that scratched its way into my ears, distorted and layered, like several voices trapped within one. The word sent a chill down my spine, yet I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Then my gaze darted to the register. The fading glow of the numbers on the cash register flickered irregularly, as if mirroring the chaos in my mind. I had read the stories, the rules, I was aware of the danger that seeped through the very walls of the station. Yet here I stood, trapped in a moment that felt like eternity. Help me! It echoed again, the mournfulness amplifying, building upon a symphony of chaos, a haunting melody that twisted my insides. My brain fought against the encroaching terror, whispering that this couldn't be real. I had to break free. I had to. In a scream I couldn't give voice to, I lunged for the door behind the counter, the sudden movement breaking the stranglehold the figure held over me. I slammed it shut, the sound reverberating like a gunshot in the stillness. The whispers became a cacophony, a twisted sense of urgency flooding my mind. What was this thing? Was it trapped here like me? Or was I the one trapped? I had no answers, only the need to escape clawing at my insides. That I could hear the figure shift just outside, a heavy presence against the door. My heart raced as I stumbled backward, retreating away from the brink. But the door gave way, creaking open, revealing the figure now fully formed in the light. A visage of shadow twisted into an anguished scream, its features contorted in a faceless mask of despair and rage. It seemed to stretch and collapse, expanding into a horrific dance of phantoms. I gasped as I stumbled back into the scattered snacks on the shelf, the tiles biting into my skin as I fell. The floor creaked ominously, echoing the building's eerie disappointment. "You're not supposed to be here," it rasped, each word like ice water pouring over me. There were no eyes, yet I felt its gaze boring into me, sifting through my thoughts, filtering through my very essence. That I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline spiking. With a surge of desperation, I darted into the storeroom, the only other option I had left, praying it would provide refuge. The door slammed shut behind me, the darkness swallowing me whole. Inside, I flailed my arms, trying to orient myself in the pitch blackness. Boxes and shelves loomed around me, metallic rattling echoing as I bumped into them. I let out a shaky breath, feeling around for a light switch, but instead, my fingers brushed against something cold and wet. I jerked away, bile rising in my throat. As I took a tentative breath, the air thickened, and all at once I was surrounded by hissed whispers, like the rustling of leaves in a storm. They filled my ears, wrapping around me, and I closed my eyes, trying to shut them out. My mind raged against the impending panic. A sudden chill enveloped my feet, and I looked down to see a shadow creeping from under the closed door, a dark fog pooling at my ankles as it curled upward, wrapping me like a serpent. My heart raced, the realization washing over me that whatever I had invited into that gas station was not leaving without a fight. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me, merging into an agonized wail of despair. I backed away, my heart pounding in time with the echoing thrums in the walls, each beat a second away from freedom or doom. But then, among the chaos, I heard a deep, unyielding voice that sliced through the din. "You are lost, and it's time to be found." The shadows twisted and rippled like disturbed water, and as their fingers reached for me, I felt a pull deeper than gravity, a tether dragging me into the void. The door burst open, the light from the gas station flooding the room with a blinding glare. And then, a figure stepped inside, a figure I knew all too well. My heart froze as I recognized my reflection in the pale light. My eyes wide with terror, I staggered back as the familiar face twisted into a cruel smile. "Let's play," and in that moment, the world tilted, the gas station around me fracturing like glass shattering, leaving me teetering on the edge, a scream stuck in my throat and nothing but darkness ahead. The darkness enveloped me, a heavy blanket that smothered any vestige of light. I stumbled back, trying to comprehend the apparition I had just seen. My doppelganger stood before me, an inky void carved to resemble my features, the malicious grin stretching impossibly wide. It felt like looking into a mirror that reflected only nightmares. "Let's play," it taunted, voice syrupy sweet yet laced with something sinister that chilled my very soul. "Get away from me." I screamed, my voice breaking as I flailed at the shadows gripping me, tearing at my clothes. It laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty room and sent shards of ice through my veins. I wanted to run, to escape those mocking eyes, but the weight of the darkness pulled at me, holding me back like a predator toying with its prey. "Rules," it hissed, a serpent-like whisper winding around my mind. "There are rules if you wish to stay. All you have to do is listen." In a panic, I lunged toward the door, but it slammed shut, as if a greater force wanted to keep me within this malevolent embrace. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with dread, push and pull toward something deeper. I pressed my body against the door, my heart pounding a furious rhythm, desperate to escape the creature that mirrored me, and then came the whispers again, restless, swirling around my head like a horde of relentless crows. "Come out and play, you must remember," they sang, each phrase laced with the echoes of trapped souls. "Show us your fear." I squeezed my eyes shut, ready to drown out the horror, but my reflection laughed again. "You invited this, you wanted it," it crooned. The game has only just begun. With a sudden wrench, the flood of whispers coalesced into a singular roar, the force of it crashing against me. I stumbled back and fell against the shelves, knocking over boxes that exploded into a feces of contents. Among the chaos, something sharp bit into my hand. I gasped, pulling back to see a rusty blade, glinting even in the darkness. As I gripped it, the reflection's grin widened further, stretching beyond humanity. "That's a nice toy. But can you use it?" My breath caught in my throat. "Remember the first rule?" it asked, voice a whimsical sing-song. "When you find the player you must take the first turn." I could feel the shadows thickening around me, thick as molasses, as if they were forming into something more tangible, filling the targets of despair. The air turned frigid, my breath misting in front of me. For the first time, I sensed something alive in the darkness, a thrumming heartbeat painted in shadows around me. "No. I want to leave. I want to," but my words fell flat, swallowed by the shadows that had now coalesced into the shape of tortured souls, faces contorted in agony. They reached for me with wispy fingers, groaning out haunting chords of desperation. "Do you want to play?" they whispered, urging me, pulling at the edges of memory I could barely comprehend. With a sudden surge of defiance, I swung the blade in wild abandon, creating a split in the air between us and the looming horror. My reflection recoiled, a flicker of uncertainty ghosting across its painted features. I thought I had won. I thought I could escape, but then, a dissonant harmony erupted from the rift that formed, and every face in the shadows smiled wider, gleeful in their twisted understanding. "Oh, but you're not just playing with us, dear. You're playing with yourself." Time seemed to freeze. I stumbled backward, dropping the blade. The gas station around me darkened, and the very ground trembled as my reflection began to step out of the darkness, unfurling shadowy limbs like the opening of a grotesque flower. "Now it's your turn," it whispered, lips curling with dark anticipation. I could feel a dreadful pull, an insatiable temptation to comply, to join the dance of torment as the ghosts around me began to sway, voices rising in discord. But as it loomed closer, nothing could prepare me for the last confession. It uttered words that struck like a curse. "You should have never broken the rules." The ground vibrated violently beneath me, sending me crashing to the floor as the shadows rippled with gnashing teeth. I scrambled frantically, clawing against the debris, but it was too late. The lights in the store flickered, a final gasp of life before blackness claimed them entirely, plunging me into a chasm where only the laughter of my twisted doppelganger echoed, merging with the wails of the damned. And then, silencia, crushing, suffocating silence, broken only by the hushed promise of sinister game pieces sliding into place. I felt a cold hand slip around my wrist. With a violent jolt, the darkness swallowed me whole, and that's when I realized this was only the beginning. I thrashed in the cold abyss, limbs flailing as I fought against the unseen forces dragging me deeper into the blackness. The silence morphed into a suffocating din that echoed my own heartbeat, but I could not find my place in it. My very essence felt muddled, torn between this world and a writhing nightmare that awaited just beneath the surface. "Did you really think you would escape?" a voice slithered through the dark. Me doppelganger's voice. "After all, you've already played." Suddenly, the ground solidified beneath me, not quite solid and not quite liquid, but a sickening mixture that threatened to pull me back in if I dared to move. I braced myself against it. There was a fragment of clarity, like a fragile lantern flickering in a storm. My heart raced as I recalled the last remnants of light in the store, the flickering bulbs that cast shadows of doom. That I fought my rising panic and whispered, "Rules play." Each word was thick in my throat, a fearful incantation that begged for the slightest glimmer of hope, but hope had darkened, replaced with the chilling reality of my situation. I was no longer confined to that gas station. It now felt like a realm that expanded into infinitia, a warped domain where the rules of life twisted grotesquely. The shadows shifted, drawing closer, forming grotesque shapes that almost resembled familiar figures, friends, family, long-lost acquaintances. Their faces were blurred, tormented, yet their mouths moved in silent, synchronized unison. I couldn't understand the silent symphony they played, but I felt it in my core, a melody of despair woven thick with my own fears. "Join us," their voices beckoned, a chorus rising and falling, heart-wrenching in its plea. It's so lonely in the light. Come play where the shadows thrive. That I tore my gaze away, a primal fear gripping me. There was something fundamentally wrong in their invitation, a facet of temptation mixed with a sinister ulterior motive. I raised my trembling hands, the blade now a mere relic of defiance slipped through my fingers and vanished into the void. No. I screamed, panic surging through me. I don't want to play. The very walls around me writhed in response, drilling deeper into my mind, trapping me in layers of twisted memories that flashed in jagged flashes before my eyes. A forgotten birthday, laughter drowned in darkness, moments lost like ashes on the wind, and then I heard the sound of a door creaking open somewhere in the distance, hopeful yet ominous. I turned instinctively toward the sound, heart pounding with an unlikely blend of dread and curiosity. Could it be an exit? Could it lead me back to the world of the living? But a wave of uncertainty cascaded over me as familiar laughter echoed, and the world around me shifted into an unsettling focus. There stood my reflection, wielding that dark blade now, eyes glowing with a malicious light, basking in the sheer joy of creeping terror. Did you really believe you could escape me? It mocked, a cruel sneer curling its lips. I am you, and you are me. We will play forever. The hearts of shadows pulsed rhythmically, echoing my own, binding me to this malevolent being. Panic gripped me like a vice. It was as if the essence of my very soul had become tangled in this grotesquerie of fate. I staggered back, fighting tears, knowing this battle was just beginning. The creaking door swung wider, unveiling an endless tunnel of flickering fractures draped in shadows. The sensation of being pulled toward it intensified, a magnetic force linking my heart to the void. Enter, my doppelganger beckoned, voice low and dripping with temptation. Join the others in the game. The laughter of those trapped souls followed as unseen hands stretched out, urging me closer to the precipice of despair. My feet hesitated, teetering between the horrific call of the unknown and the desperate wish to remain. The air swirled with the scent of decay, reminding me of the countless times it had overtaken me, whispers threading through my consciousness, a vile reminder that the game had rules that could never be broken. And just as I felt the edges of my resolve trembling, the cacophony reached a fever pitch, faces writhing and bleeding into one another, rising toward the threshold like a tide. Remember, the chorus rasped, rising in a dissonant crescendo. To play is to accept. And then came the pull, a raw force that seized my body, drawing me toward the door that yawned open in darkness. With every ounce of strength, I turned to bolt in the opposite direction. But the last whisper pierced through the fray, echoing in every crevice of doom. You can run, but the game never ends. Before I could comprehend the way forward, a cold sensation clamped around my ankle, pulling viciously. My scream tore through the shadows, drowning in the vacuum of horror. And in that suffocating moment, the last shred of light blinked out, leaving me to plunge beyond the threshold of madness. Oblivion. With a guttural scream, the shadows erupted around me, unraveling every strand of sanity. I was enveloped, drowning while they came to life, and as I slipped into darkness, the last gnashing teeth flashed in the light, revealing something horrific, a ghastly version of myself, returning to finish the game. All went black but for the final sound, the laughter that would haunt me forever. Silence pressed in as I fell into the void, a dark canvas where sound and light intertwined, a tapestry woven from anguish and despair. My heart thundered against my ribs, a desperate drum echoing into nothingness, and yet the laughter persisted, reverberating in the depths of my mind, a cruel reminder of the darkness that now fully consumed me. Gradually, the atmosphere around me began to shift, coalescing into a semblance of form. I opened my eyes to find myself lying in a desolate landscape, the ground cracked and dry, stretching endlessly beneath a pale, blood-red sky. The weight of the unseen had lifted, but the dread lingered, thick as fog, wrapping itself around me like a shroud. As I struggled to rise, a creeping awareness washed over me, a feeling of being watched. The silence was almost tangible, suffocating, tainted with the rhythm of my ragged breaths. I stared into the distance, where pairs of glowing eyes blinked open in the crevices of the skeletal trees, their forms slinking just out of reach. They were watching, waiting. The realization that I was not alone clawed at my sanity. With slow, shaky steps, I ventured deeper into this barren wasteland, the ground crunching beneath me like broken glass. I could hear whispers localized in the wind, indistinct yet layered with malevolence, each syllable crafted to ensnare my thoughts. A chill slithered down my spine with every soft murmur, ruthless pieces of phrases trailed off just as I thought I could grasp them. Turn back, one hissed. Stay with us, another wheedled. It's safe in the shadows, a persistent voice called, so familiar yet laced with venom that I reached for them, clawing the air as if the very remnants of my past would pull me back. Memories slipped through my fingers like grains of sand, images of laughter and love dulled by the chilling contrast of the voices beckoning me from the dark. That it was then, on the periphery of my vision, that movement caught my attention. Figures danced just beyond the threshold of shadows, their forms fluctuating eerily between spectral and solid. Each soul, warped and grotesque, spun in rhythm, a manic ballet played for an audience that did not exist. Join us. They cajoled, their voices mingling into a haunting harmony, each note tugging at the frayed edges of my sanity. I fought the urge to join their twisted performance, my feet rooted in the dirt of reluctance. Without warning, the chorus crescendoed, a rippling wave of malevolence cascading over me. The surroundings warped, the sky itself twisting in a violent tempest, radiating anger that seemed to drop every ounce of warmth from my skin. Shadows massed at the edges, coiling and unraveling like serpents eager to strike. As I stumbled backward, a horrible realization pierced through the haze. These were not mere echoes of souls trapped in torment, they were reflections of my own darkness, manifestations of every regret and fear I had ever nurtured. Play, they chorused in unison, a command that rang clear, echoes bouncing through the desolation. You cannot escape the game. That I swallowed hard, the air heavy with the sense of ancient malice. No. I shouted again, though the defiance felt weak, imperceptible against the tide of shadow and silence. In that moment, the earth beneath me trembled, the cracks widening to swallow me whole as the ground heaved with the resonance of old secrets rising to the surface. A looming figure emerged from the trembling ground, an amalgamation of every horror I had imagined. The reflection in the gas station mirror, the dark blade in its hand replaced now with a gnarled staff of bone and shadows, tendrils of darkness spiraling off like smoke. That I have come for you, to claim what you owe, it hissed, voice slithering through the air like poison. The glowing eyes within the skeletal visage bored into me, unblinking, insatiable. I turned to flee, despair coiling tightly in my chest, but the figures surged forward, an undulating mass of despair. Their grasping fingers were cold, thorn-like, brushing against my skin like icy tendrils, drawing me toward an ominous void that opened wide before us. Don't resist, they pleaded, their expressions melding into an unrecognizable agony. We all must play. Their mouths moved in sync, shifting and bending, a grotesque art of terror in harmony. I fought against their pull, the earth now a liquid trap beneath me, holding me fast as fragments of my past encircled, faces lost, screams silenced, futures tarnished by the shadows I could never outrun. As dread filled the air, the ground fissured beneath my feet, an abyss yawning wide, threatening to swallow me into an unending black. I could only stare in horror as the tendrils of shadow converged, grasping at my ankles, creeping higher. Come, the entities hissed, it's time to join the game. And as I felt the last of my resolve crumble, the scream leaving my mouth was swallowed in darkness, blending with a cacophony of laughter, a sinister celebration marking the beginning of my true nightmare, where escape was but a cruel illusion, and the game had only just begun. And then, at the brink of the abyss, the voice of my doppelganger echoed one last time, a chilling whisper that sent ice through my veins. It seems that tonight we play for your very soul. The moment I fell into the dark embrace of the abyss, time and space distorted around me. I was swept into a maelstrom of memories and nightmares, trapped in a cycle of regret that flooded my senses in torrential waves. The laughter faded into an eerie stillness, replaced by an echoing silence that strained against the pressure of a brewing storm. My heart raced, a frantic drumbeat drowning in the suffocating darkness. I found myself suspended in a void, a place that felt akin to limbo, caught between misery and madness. I was not alone here. Shadows nudged against my consciousness, shivering with anticipation. Strangely, familiar voices coiled around me, low and seductive. They whispered truths long buried, doubts I had fought to suppress. Run, the shadows crooned, but you cannot escape what you have embraced. I opened my eyes again, not knowing where the boundaries lay, but they guided me ever closer to horrific realization. The surroundings morphed, the abyss now settled into a twisted representation of the gas station where I had once worked. The flickering lights over the pumps glimmered like ghastly stars in a dormant sky, illuminating the cracked concrete that wept under the weight of unseen regret that I stumbled as the apparition of the abandoned station appeared before me, stitched together from remnants of my past. The air was thick, clogging my lungs with a stale odor of burnt rubber and despair. The walls seemed to pulsate, whispering forgotten secrets that resonated with the pulse of dread in my chest. As I crept toward the front door, a high-pitched cry pierced the silence. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs as the spindly shadows danced at the edges of my vision. There, beneath the flickering neon sign that now bled an unsettling shade of crimson, a figure crouched. It was small, hugging its knees, the remnants of innocence twisted beneath the weight of despair. As I stepped closer, recognition gnawed at my sanity. "Ellie," I gasped, the name slipping past my lips as I fell to my knees. The ghostly child bore a resemblance to my younger sister, lost so long ago amidst tragedy and grief. Her blonde hair hung limp, a dirty halo around her hollow cheeks. Her eyes glowed with a haunting light, a candle flickering in the gale of despair. "Help me," she murmured, though her voice was strangled with echoes of the past. "You left me here." Shadows writhed around her, their tendrils reaching like hungry hands. I reached for her, desperate to bridge the distance, but she recoiled as if stung. "Not that way!" she shrieked, her voice snapping back as the darkness closed in. "You don't understand. It's a trap." Suddenly, the shadows thickened, coalescing into grotesque forms, twisted imitations of my former co-workers, faces warped with a twisted glee. They laughed, a cacophony of joy and malice that twisted around me like barbed wire. I could hear the distinct tones of their voices, once friendly and familiar, now layered with mocking cruelty. "Join us," they beckoned, their limbs stretching manipulatively, entwining with spectral chains of blackness that dragged me backward, further into the gas station's haunted depths. "It's time to play, Ellie." I screamed, but my plea fell into the void, the laughter drowning my protests as they tightened their grip. She clambered away from the encroaching darkness, eyes wide with rising panic. "Trust your heart, not the shadows. They'll take you again." But before I could comprehend her warning, the lights flickered violently, casting grotesque shapes in and out of existence. The walls of the gas station pulsated, breathing in sync with my mounting dread. With each flicker, the space around me warped, merging into distant memories of late-night shifts and hasty goodbyes. I was trapped within an amalgam of laughter and sorrow, memories feeding into the cacophony that threatened to consume me. With a surge of adrenaline, I fought against the tide, desperately clawing at the shadows that clung to me. "Let her go," I cried, voice trembling with desperation. "She's just a child," but the shadows writhed and laughed, a wild serenade wrapping me in a shroud of their dark promises. The floor bucked beneath me, fissures cracking wide as the cries of desperation echoed. I felt formidable hands of darkness at my back, urging me to embrace the shadows, to pull Ellie down into their depths, to play the cruel game of the cursed choices. In that moment, amidst the chaos and laughter, I felt something slip from my grip. The void opened wide below, a gaping darkness that promised no escape, a black hole threatening to engulf everything I dared to love. But just as I thought I would be lost forever, the name Ellie burst forth from my lips, a final desperate cry that pierced through the wailing shadows, and then, silence fell, the darkness receded for a heartbeat. In that fragile pause, hope flickered, sending a chill through the writhing forms. But as I grasped for it, shadows pulled back momentarily. The apparition of my sister stood defiantly, eyes wide, glowing bright against the encroaching dark. "Don't let them win," she screamed, and suddenly, the walls of the gas station exploded with laughter, the flickering lights blinding me as they surged forward, all of them, the shadows, the terrors, my sister, in one grand, horrifying unison, hands reaching for me, dragging me back into the festering darkness, a final smile twisting across their ghostly visages. As I teetered at the edge, I remembered those cursed rules I had run from, the engaging game now thundering back with a vengeance. "Tonight we play for your very soul," they howled, and as the darkness enveloped me, the last words I heard echoed, "You will always play." The vacuum of darkness gripped my heart with icy fingers, squeezing the breath from my lungs as I plummeted into the violent abyss. The cacophony of laughter pulsed around me, an orchestra of madness that played on the strings of my soul. I felt my body torn away from the remnants of light, shredded by despair and swallowed by the laughter that echoed through the void, but just as the shadows were about to claim me entirely, a surge of energy crashed through the fabric of the nightmare, propelling me backward. The collision with solid ground jolted my senses. I landed hard on the cold, cracked concrete of the gas station floor. Pain lanced through my ankle, but I pushed it aside, fueled by a primal instinct to survive. The gas station stood around me, reformed and grotesque, the fluorescent lights now blaring with a sickly glow that felt more like the eyes of a predator watching its prey. The walls pulsed with shadows that flickered like live snakes, waiting for the right moment to strike. I scrambled to my feet, disoriented but not broken. The whispers of uncertainty and childhood memories pulsated in my mind, an unsettling blend. The room was a tapestry of horror. Each punk shimmered with the reflection of my past, twisting familiar faces into ghastly masks that were contorted with rage. My former co-workers slid out from the dim corners, their laughter an amalgamation of mirth and sorrow, each voice wrapping around me like a noose. They reached out, grasping at the echoes of my reality, pulling me back into the morass of grief. Suddenly, piercing through the malevolence came Ellie's voice again, sharp and unwavering. "Follow the light, don't look back." A flash behind me caught my eye. A luminous figure wove through the darkness, flickering like an ember fighting to stay alive in the howling wind. Without hesitation, I ran toward it, the shadows shrieking in rage as my feet carried me across the decaying floor. With every step, their grip slackened, screams birthed from mouths that were once familiar becoming a choir of despair. That I burst through the door to the parking lot, the stench of gasoline stinging my nostrils as I collided into the evening air, drenched in a hue of red and purple twilight, a false promise of serenity. But upon stepping outside, dread washed over me as I turned to see the gas station morph once more a monstrous reflection of its former self, like a beast shifting its skin. The fluorescent lights now blades, glimmering with dark blood. Horrified, I stumbled backward, the haunting laughter spilling from the gas station door like a torrential outcry of the damned. I was about to turn away when the hinges shrieked, and a clawed hand shot out from the blackness, curling around the frame. "Not so fast." It snarled, a face emerging from the shadow, a distortion of my once beloved co-workers, each feature merging grotesquely into one. Their eyes gleamed with twisted malevolence, dark pits of desire yearning for my submission. Before I could react, the ground beneath me trembled violently, fissures cracking wide open, revealing the depths of the underlying terror. The echoes of whispers returned, nightmarish anticipations filled my ears with frantic urgency. They spoke of the game rules, binding promises made long ago, and carrying the weight of souls yet to be harvested. No. "I want play," I cried, grounding myself in the knowledge of what lurked behind those doors. But even as I shouted, doubt crept through my mind like fog. What did I truly know about this game? What didn't I understand? A thunderous roar erupted as the abyss beneath me yawned, the shadows coiling around my legs spiraling tighter, squeezing with a desperation that made my blood run cold. The cacophony of laughter only grew, the shadows celebrating my impending demise as they tugged me deeper into their embrace. "Join us." They screamed, their raspy voices painted with delight, resonating through the air like a death knell. My breaths quickened as I felt my feet slip, the asphalt crumbling away, revealing only the infinite darkness below that clawed at my ankles. But then an image crystallized in my Minda memory of Ellie, vibrant and full of life, laughter cascading from her lips as we climbed trees and played in the sun. In that moment, my heart screamed with defiance. I was not just an idol of torment, I was a protector, a brother. I would not abandon her again to their grasp. Summoning every ounce of strength, I pulled myself up, tearing my feet free from the lurking shadows and racing away from the infernal cacophony. But as I sprinted, a new horror gripped me. I turned to see the gas station still standing unyielding, the figure of Ellie framed against the darkness, faceless and lit only by the tainted glow of the neon sign, "Help me." She cried, her voice faltering as the darkness writhed around her like a brace of vipers. My heart shattered as her image faded, replaced instead with blighted reflections of those I had lost, ghosts anchored by the weight of my regrets, taunting me. The earth quaked beneath me once more, a tremor of destiny, a choice unmade, a sinister portal tearing into the night. I stood, frozen, as the shadows seeped into the ground, swirling like a dark whirlpool, threatening to consume every precious memory, and as the last glimmers of hope dimmed, I could feel the gas station reaching for me once more, the chains of regret binding tightly around my heart. That it was then I heard it, a thunderous voice that shook the air, the laughter rising into a haunting crescendo, echoing with a chilling proclamation that burned into my very core. Soon, we shall all play together with the ground giving way beneath me. The shadows stretched toward me in a final embrace, and just as I felt myself slipping into oblivion, I swore I heard Ellie's whispered plea against the suffocating dark, "Don't leave me," and then I fell. The descent felt eternal, a spiraling plunge through layers of darkness interspersed with flashes of grotesque visions that flickered like dying stars. Each image was a dagger, embedding deeper into my psyche, Ellie's face twisted in despair, the gas station morphing into an anguished beast, the shadows writhing with salacious hunger. Just as the scream clawed its way to my throat, I hit the ground hard. Instead of a violent impact, I landed softly, as if the earth had conspired to cradle me. I pushed myself up, grappling with a disorienting haze that enveloped my senses. The air was thick, saturated with a putrid scent of decay, yet oddly familiar. Before me extended a labyrinthine corridor, stretching infinitely into the darkness, the walls around me pulsating with a sickly luminescence that shifted from deep burgundy to a venomous green. With each cautious step, the whispers returned, a menagerie of voices wrapping around me like a shroud. "Welcome to the beneath where reality frays," they urged, an unholy symphony bent on luring me deeper into the unknown. Suddenly, the corridor jerked violently, the shadows flickered, coiling and uncoiling like serpents about to spring. That a shiver chased down my spine, and I turned to flee. But the space behind me had evaporated into nothingness, a vast chasm of gloom, daring me to step closer. Panic entwined with the familiar cries of my lost companions, echoing through the air like mournful dirges, each voice a reminder of the demand for sacrifice. "Make a choice," a voice started, smooth and oily, slithering through the air. "You entered, now you must engage." The shadows twisted in response, forming a grotesque silhouette, a reflection of my worst fears and memories. Before I could grasp the nauseating intricacies of my predicament, the ground beneath me morphed, shifting into a mosaic of faces tainted, weathered, each expressing a silent scream of agony. My heart clenched with realization these were the souls forever tethered to this cursed place, each one bound by the heavy chains of their unfulfilled desires. A flicker of movement caught my eye. It was a limping figure staggering toward me from the distance, limbs bent unnaturally, skin mottled and bruised. As it drew closer, I recognized the half-formed features, the remnants of my former co-workers, their faces bearing an agonizing mixture of rage and sorrow. They moved together, a grotesque ballet, their mouths stretched open wide, their wails merging into a symphony of chaos. Instinct kicked in as I darted to the side, pressing myself against the wall. But even here, the shadows slithered, reaching for me, caressing my arms with clammy fingers, threatening to consume every ounce of light I still held. I could feel the weight of their despair, it clung to me like damp linen, suffocating and reeking of failure. "Why did you abandon us?" one of them shrieked, the echo like glass breaking against my heart. "We trusted you." Their eyes were black voids, devouring all remnants of warmth, their cries morphing into a cacophony of accusation, pulling me like gravity itself. No. I tried. I screamed back, desperation clawing at my throat as I stumbled further down the hall, a nightmarish spiral of anguish where the very air felt electric with hostility. Suddenly, the ground beneath me shimmered with an unnatural light, revealing words etched in crimson, draping shadows over the cries of despair. "Accept the game's rules or remain here forever." Each word pulsed with life, throbbing with dread and failure. It felt like a message carved straight from the nightmares of the countless souls trapped in this hellish prison. Against the backdrop of agony, I could hear Ellie's voice resonate deep within my mind, gentle yet firm, breaking through the tempest. "Remember us," she urged, a beacon of clarity in the storm of chaos. "Find the light, find me, brother." Her words ignited a flame within me, forcing bile up into my throat. I turned, resisting the clawing fears that sought to drown me, pushing against the shadows that twisted with malevolent intent. I ran. But as I stormed through the corridor of regret, I could feel the shadows spiraling with wrath, reforming to block my path. A monstrous wall, dark and chaotic, with faces of the damned swirling in the obsidian mass, mouths moving in silent agony. Join us, they rasped softly, the malice in their whispers thick like smoke, my name rolling off their tongues like a curse. Sweat dripped from my brow as I pressed forward blindly, taking in nothing but the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. It was then that I collided headlong into another being, firm and real, yet cooler than death. My breath lodged in my throat as I looked up, meeting the abyss of black eyes staring back at me. It was Ellie, pale and shimmering, but twisted, barely recognizable, her face a haunting collage of the light that once radiated her presence so vibrantly. The shadows moved behind her, ready to close in. Help me, she implored, her voice cracking, as the entity she had become shimmered and flickered like a candle in a tempest. My breath caught in my throat, an emotion I had never felt surging within me, a primal urge to tear the veils of despair apart. No! I screamed again. Don't let them take you. As the shadows surged, my mind screamed for clarity, a final decision hanging heavy in the air. And just like that, I remembered the words of the cursed game echoing in the bowels of this place. Soon, we shall all play together. And as the echo of that sinister laughter enveloped us, the corridor began to shake violently. Shadows twisted, the air crackled, and I felt myself pulled between light and dark, every ounce of my being fighting to save what remained of Ellie before it was too late. But as my fingers reached out to grasp hers, all I felt was the icy emptiness of despair, a dark echo reverberating. Welcome to the game, it mocked, as the ground beneath swallowed Ellie whole, like flames engulfing kindling, her form replaced by darkness. I was left alone again, the void of silence deafening, bones rattling like chains, an ominous promise thrumming in the air. And just as I turned to flee again, the ground trembled with renewed fervor, opening wide like a gaping maw. I fell, yet not alone, for the shadows broke free, thrumming in delight as they merged into a formless shape with outstretched arms, darker than despair itself, and as it closed in, I heard that breathy, chilling laughter. Now, we shall all play in the gathering darkness. I was consumed, the laughter of the damned crescendoing to a halt, and just before slipping away, I whispered a final prayer. I awoke amid the shifting darkness, disoriented and breathless. The ground beneath me was no longer solid but felt like wet soil, deeply familiar yet nauseating. I pressed my palms against it, feeling the cool earth pulse beneath the weight of 1,000 breaths. The air was heavy, laden with moisture, and the stench of decay clawed at my throat. That putrid aroma sent me spiraling into memories I dared not face, but they lurked at the edges of my consciousness, just waiting to reclaim their hold. Ellie, my voice echoed, swallowed by the oppressive silence that wrapped around me. I was alone again, but her shadow still flickered on the edges of my vision. Somewhere, somehow, I could sense her pain, an electric pull luring me deeper into the twisted web of this subterranean nightmare. With a sharp surge of resolve, I stumbled to my feet, the ground squelching beneath my weight. A meandering path stretched before me, seemingly created from centuries-old bones twisted and cracked, fragments of what must have been humanity. They whispered my name as I walked, their muted pleas a dark reminder of those who had tread this path before me. Join us, they murmured like a lullaby, weaving between the living and the dead, their whimpers hauntingly beautiful. I pressed forward, my heart thudding like a war drum, every step an act of defiance against the suffocating shadows weaving around me. The walls of this accursed realm flickered in and out of existence, revealing grotesque murals of faces locked in terror, their eyes bulging with stories of torment. With every breath I took, I was reminded of the names, the faces, the souls I had lost. They were all here alive in their agony, clawing their way towards me. Are you here to play? A voice oozed from the shadows ahead, crystalline yet sinister, drenching me in icy fear. I squinted into the murk, straining against the incursion of doubt as the figure materialized. It was a ghastly mockery of Ellie, adorned in tattered remnants of clothing that trailed behind like wisps of fog. Her eyes burned with haunting fire, clarity shattered by despair. You must be the one to choose, she said, her voice a tremor of familiarity wrapped in a shroud of manipulation. You came here to save us, didn't you? Prove it. Choosing. The idea twisted my stomach like a noose. What do you want from me? The question echoed, heavy with the realization that any answer could lead me deeper into the pit of misery laid before me. Two choices await you. One leads to freedom for all of us, the other, lifetimes of bondage, she replied, her lips curving in a cruel imitation of a smile, waxen and decayed. As she spoke, a dark figure loomed behind her, a thick shadow that billowed like smoke, rippling with shadows deep as the abyss. It trembled with ethereal menace, dripping with liquid darkness that pooled at its feet. Leave us be, it growled, the very essence of abominable things. My throat constricted, panic suffocating any will to resist. Choose wisely, said Ellie, her voice splicing the growing tension, a startling juxtaposition of sweetness. But time is against us. A distant wail pierced the silence, a sound so visceral it could slice through bone, the cries of the tortured alongside the pleas of my own fear. My heart raced. In the corner of my eye, the wall pulsated, hints of light cascading across its surface as it wrenched itself apart, revealing gaping mouths and eyes that oozed dark secrets. And then a flood of whispers swept over me, shadows twisting and curling, each carry a disembodied voice begging for liberation. You must choose, now. They implored, their urgency swelling into a tide that threatened to drown me. I tore my eyes from the looming horror and latched onto Ellie. What if I choose wrong? What if there's no hope? Her expression flickered like a flame before snuffing into despair, just a shimmer before being consumed entirely by the darkness behind her. Only you can find the light, she spoke, her voice weakening, her essence fading. If you dare. Before I could respond, the expanse surrounding me morphed. The walls groaned and shuddered, pulling in as if the universe itself held its breath. In a swift motion, the elongated hallway veered aside, swallowed whole by an unspeakable void, a gaping maw that whispered promises of salvation mixed with the feral hunger of lost souls. With an urgency born from raw desperation, I lunged forward, toward the darkness engulfing Ellie. In that split second, 1,000 futures unfolded, the potential for horror and reprieve coiling and colliding within my heart. Make your choice. The abyss snarled, each syllable a whip crack against my mind, but just as I poised to leap into the unknown, the ground trembled violently, an earthquake of shadow and light as the two worlds collided around me. Ellie's figure flickered like a dying star before being consumed by the smudged blackness, her eyes a kaleidoscope of hope and despair. Brother. You have to choose. She shrieked, and in that last fleeting moment, the pull of the void swallowed her voice, rendering it void, that I was left teetering on the edge of the abyss, the ageless dialogue of choices expanding in all directions like a cursed game board. I closed my eyes, every instinct screaming to run, to escape, but the shadows surged behind me, and then, a blinding flash erupted, for the singular light cutting through the chaos, illuminating my path. As the shadows recoiled, I made my decision. My heart thudded like a relentless drum, echoing as I reached towards the blessed illumination, but before my fingers could touch what I hoped would save me, the ground shattered beneath me, and plans of escape dissolved into screams as everything I knew succumbed to the monstrous maw of darkness that I fell endlessly, grasping for a glimmer of light that danced just out of reach. And in that free fall, the laughter of the damned wrapped around me, teasing, beckoning, and weaving a tapestry of terror destined to ensnare another soul into their endless game. I thought I had escaped the gas station's grasp, but here I was again, thrust into another suffocating darkness. As my body slammed against the cold earth, it was no longer the cracked concrete, but soft dirt bathed in an eerie twilight. A familiar scent tinged the air, a combination of decay and something sweet, ripe with memories I had desperately tried to forget. Panic clawed at my throat as I pushed myself up, 1,000 thoughts scrambling in my mind. The shadows stretched around me like wraiths hungry for my despair, and I could hear the echoes of the gas station, the laughter, the whispers, the taunts. You never left, they hissed. You wanted us, and now we're all together. The darkness coiled tighter, wrapping around my ankles and pulling. I stumbled forward, heart racing, as I scanned my surroundings. Was this a nightmare? Could I wake up from this? In the distance, a faint glow flickered like a dying star, calling me toward it. Desperation fueled my movement, I could feel the shadows slithering behind me, their touch icy and insidious. As I neared the light, it took shape, revealing a doorway. I recognized this place. The threshold exuded an eerie chill, yet it also whispered promises of safety, akin to the embrace of an old friend. Without thinking, I crossed the threshold, but before I stepped inside, a voice stopped me. You really think you can escape? It was the dark doppelganger, emerging from the shadows like a nightmare-given form, its face twisted in that familiar malicious grin. You've always been part of this realm. You are one of us.no. The word tore from my lips with a raw intensity, but the shadows behind me surged forward, pulling me back toward that swirling emptiness. I felt the weight of countless memories pressing against my chest, each one a reminder of my failures, my regrets, the faces of friends, family, and Ellie, all melded with the cries of the damned. Join us, they sang, their voices intertwined, a haunting choir echoing off the walls of this twilight realm. The choice is if you want to play, the doppelganger continued. But remember, you must take your turn. Fear lanced through me. I don't want to play. Let me go. I shouted, but the darkness grinned, relishing in my panic. But you've already played. It reached towards me, its fingers elongating like shadows in the fading light, surrounding my wrists, drawing me closer to that light, now pulsing like a heartbeat. The whispers quieted momentarily, a breath held in anticipation. Now is your time to choose. I felt my feet shift, the ground beneath me vibrating with energy. It didn't matter that I tried to deny it, I was trapped in a game where the stakes were my very soul. With a surge of instinct, I bolted toward the light, but rather than engulf me, it shattered into shards, flaring into a kaleidoscope of colors that swirled around. Each piece held a reflection of my past joyful moments intertwined with the horror of loss. And then I saw her, Ellie, her haunting visage brighter than any flickering light. Help me. The sight pushed me on, urging me to fight against the darkness that yearned to consume us both. I reached out for her, my heart thrumming a frantic rhythm. I'm coming for you. But just as I felt her warmth from the light begin to reignite the embers of hope deep inside me, my doppelganger laughed, cruelly transforming. You think this is salvation? It's just another facade beneath which darkness thrives. As I surged forward, a darkness so vicious lunged at me, wrapping around my throat like a noose. It held me in place, constricting with relentless force. The shadows melded together, forming terrible faces of those I once called friends, their mouths moving in unison as they urged me to succumb, surrender. They didn't want me to save Ellie, they wanted me to join their eternal lament. With a roar fueled by sheer will, I forced myself to fight, grappling against the uncertainty that clawed at me. I won't abandon you. I screamed, tears streaking my cheeks. Everything I had faced rushed through me, all those I lost, everyone whose dignity faded into the darkness. In a blinding surge of resolve, I found myself outside the doorway, my back pressed against its cool surface. At the fringe of my perception, the gas station loomed ahead, a grotesque memory of twisting darkness and laughter. I would not be a part of that anymore. She needs you. The doppelganger's voice howled, twisting around my heart as shadows shrieked for my surrender. But then, from the corner of my vision, I saw Ellie step forward as if out of that broken light, hesitant yet filled with courage. You must choose. Choose me, brother. As she beckoned, something ignited within me, a recognition that I had the power to decide. The gas station and shadowy figures lunged at me, desperate to dissuade me. But they were mere reflections of fear, not the ultimate truth. Choose me. Ellie's voice pushed me forward, an anchor in the storm. In that momentary peace, I allowed all my love for her to flood my heart, mingling with an unwavering resolve. I choose love. I proclaimed, voice trembling yet firm. The dark shriek shattered the temple of shadows, releasing those trapped within its grasp. I shattered through the doorway, reaching Ellie just in time to pull her from the darkness. All those I had lost followed her light, emerging from the depths alongside me. The gas station crumbled in the distance, its haunting laughter falling silent, consumed by the winds of fate. But even as the night fell away into a brilliant dawn, I could hear something lingering, a soft whisper that curled around me. You can't run from the game forever. And then, I awoke, lying on the familiar cracked tiles of the gas station. Fluorescence buzzed overhead while shadows danced at the edges of my vision. The door creaked open, and I turned slowly to see my reflection in the doorway. That I smiled but saw the shadow behind me flicker, and in the corner of my eye, another figure emerged, a version of me wearing the same too familiar grin. The chamber felt heavy, memories clawing my mind. I understood then, horror pooling in my gut. Welcome back to the game. The last sound I heard was the echo of laughter resounding, an everlasting reminder that I would never truly escape, forever tethered to the darkness that thrived within, waiting for the next turn.